Have you ever thought to yourself, how much more of this can I actually take? Just one more illness, one more death in the family, one more catastrophe, another day, another problem. But just how much can I actually take? Why, God, have you put me through this? What am I alive for? What is my purpose in life? How come every time I look, I see a problem, I see a sickness, and I see a death? So the questions we ask ourselves on a daily basis are questions like this. Why are the food prices going up every single month, or every time I go to the shops to buy something? It just seems to get more and more every time I go. And why does it seem like my car breaks down every time I'm in a hurry to get somewhere important? So the Bible tells us that God is with us even though we walk through all these hard times. Here's some Bible verses that can provide some strength during the hard times we go through. Isaiah 40 verses 31 says, "But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength." Psalm 23 verses 4, "Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will fear no evil, for you are with me, your rod and your staff, they comfort me." The Bible also provides examples of people who went through hard times, such as Job. Job felt as if things would never end with him because day after day, things just got worse. The Israelites, also another example. And Jesus himself, the example of going through hard times. The Bible tells us to fix our eyes on God during these hard times. So here comes the big question. Why would a good God, a loving God, allow suffering to exist in the first place? This question takes on a whole new, different, and painful reality when we are the ones that are suffering. Doesn't God care that I'm suffering? Why is He allowing these bad things to happen to me? And why is He allowing it to happen so frequently? Reconciling how a good and loving God could allow such pain in our lives or somewhat close is the most difficult thing to think about. Many have walked away from their faith because of the suffering they've experienced. And I understand that because I'm sure many of us have been there too. It's I can recall a few years ago when my dad passed away, and not so long, a few years later, my mom also passed away. And then friends of mine before that passed away, and the list just went on and on. And we ask ourselves these questions, and it is a human thing to do. Compounding the pain of suffering are the answers often given by Christians. For far too often, well meaning Christians and misinformed churches simply throw band aid answers at the question, and the pain that the person is going through is merely covered up. Have you ever heard an answer to your question that goes something like this? You just need to believe more, just pray more. You are suffering due to a lack of faith. God is causing your suffering because true followers of Jesus are spared from suffering. And yeah, that list goes on and on. And these answers don't comfort you, it just makes things worse. And it also chases you away from the faith. So thankfully, the Bible offers answers to this question. Why does God allow things like this to happen to us? We've got to understand something first, the difference between pain and suffering. We will get to why God allows suffering in a minute, but first we need to understand what suffering is and what it isn't. First, we need to define the difference between pain and suffering. All suffering includes pain, but not all pain is suffering. So, pain in most cases, a good thing. If you touch a hot stove, your body reacts with pain that causes you to quickly move your hand out of the way and prevent harm. The pain is a defense mechanism that keeps you from further harm. We might not like the pain, but it does serve a purpose. Yet we know all too well that in our pain we can quickly move to suffering. An accident that leads to lifelong pain, a disease that consumes your body, harm that was brought upon us by another human, or the millions that have no access to basic human needs. Suffering is all around us at all times. Of course, it's not just physical pain that brings about suffering. Also, non physical suffering is often quite silent, but just as painful. So those who have abused wear scars and seemingly never heal. Betrayal leaves many wondering if they will ever be whole again. Grief causes one's life to come to a standstill and become devoid of any meaning. And the list can go on and on. So we can see suffering is all around us. And the question not so quietly arises, why does God allow this? Or how can a good God allow us to suffer like this? Let's see what the Bible has to say about that. So we can clearly see there's a lot of people in the Bible that are also going through hard times and also seem to think, wow, when is this ever going to end? Okay, so the Bible spends much of its time reminding us that our suffering is not meaningless. There is hope. God is redeeming all things for his good and our benefit. And the Bible teaches us to bring this message to those in the midst of their suffering. While the Bible has valuable things to say on the topic of suffering, it doesn't directly answer our question. Rather, it focuses on how we should respond to it. So let's look into it. Why does God allow it? And before we answer it or try to answer it, we've got to understand something. There's actually a problem with our question asking, why do you let this happen to me, God? Why do I have to suffer like this? Actually, there's a fundamental flaw in asking the question. The assumption in that question is that we know better than God and that we are the center of importance. Okay, most of us probably wouldn't say that, but that's how we're reacting towards it when we say, why are you allowing this to happen to me? The reality is our understanding of God and suffering is severely limited. We are finite beings trying to grasp at an infinite God and a God that knows everything where we know very little. Now, C.S. Lewis, in A Mind Awake, says this: the problem of reconciling human suffering with the existence of a God who loves is only insoluble so long as we attach a trivial meaning to the word love and look on things as if man were the center of them. Okay, man is not the center. God does not exist for the sake of man. Man does not exist for his own sake. We were made not primarily that we may love God, although we were made for that too, but that God may love us, that we may become objects in which a divine love may rest well pleased. So, the first thing we need to recognize is that God sees a much bigger picture and He is orchestrating everything for His glory, which is to our benefit. You and I are not the center of the universe. There's a larger story unfolding that you and I are not privy to at this stage. We have to ask ourselves if we trust that God's plan is good, even if at the moment it doesn't seem good. That's actually what faith demands. Believing in advance, it will only make sense later on. Paul also points towards this mindset in 1 Corinthians 13, verses 12. For now in this life we see things imperfectly, but God sees the bigger picture, and one day He will reveal it all to us. But until then, we are told to trust in God's plan. I think the reason so many of us struggle with this question of suffering is that we actually cannot trust God. We demand answers and that God must fix our problem and He must fix it now. Thus, insisting to be at the center of everything, we think there is no way something good could come from all our suffering. The problem is, you and I are stuck with an extremely limited view. We can only see what's right in front of us. God sees a much bigger picture. Is it possible that maybe something bigger is unfolding that we cannot see? Absolutely. Something we cannot see or even understand. The point I'm trying to make: until we put God at the center of our thinking, we will always struggle with this question of why suffering exists and how it keeps going on and on. People often say this: things can only get better. That hasn't been my experience in life. When people get older, you will suffer. Take my word for it. So we need to understand that God knows the final outcome and we need to trust God. I think that is our problem with everything in life. We want things our way, we want answers now. It doesn't work that way with God. God's plan is always good, even when it doesn't seem to be. We will never be at peace with this question unless we put our absolute faith in God. God sees and understands what we cannot. Not only is he in control, He is a good God that is working things for His glory and our benefit. We can trust in His goodness, even going through all the suffering that seems to never end. So, what do we know about why God does allow suffering? There are a few things that are important, things on the topic of suffering we should know. This is not an extensive list, rather, it's the top of 4 things I think we should recognize. God is not the creator of suffering. In the beginning, God created a world absent of suffering. In Genesis 1, verses 31, God looks over His creation and declares, "It is very good." It was not in His original plan that suffering would even take place. So why is there suffering if God didn't create it? because of love. God designed humans to love, but love requires a choice. Love cannot be forced, it must be chosen. Thus, God had to give us the ability to choose. He had to give us free will. Without it, we cannot truly experience love. And of course, we knew the consequences of free will. We rebelled against God and still do, and our actions brought evil and suffering into the world. But God wasn't taken aback or surprised. He set out on a path to redeem humanity because of love. And that is exactly why Jesus Christ died on the cross for you and me. We are the creators of suffering. It's not God's design. It's by our sin. God allows for suffering, but He did not create it. The good news is that even though we royally messed up, God enters into our suffering in His pursuit of us. Hope is not lost. God is restoring creation to its original design. And point number two, we need to understand this. Though suffering isn't good, God uses it for good. While God didn't create suffering, He is in the business of redeeming it. We see this in Romans 8, verses 28. And this echoes the promise God is working all things, even the bad things, for our benefit. It is easy to see this is someone else's life and doubt it's our own life. We love stories of other people's suffering because it's been used for good, but often doubt that God can use our suffering for anything of value. The suffering we experience, we see as too harmful, the damage extreme, too extreme to be repaired, much less to be used for something good. But that's exactly what God is in the business of doing, taking the bad of this world and redeeming it for something good. The next point is all suffering is temporary. Have you ever heard the question, if God is love and is all powerful, why doesn't He just get rid of suffering altogether? It's a common question that is used to argue that either God is not all good or is not all powerful. Thus, we cannot or should not trust Him. But there's a flaw in that question. The assumption is that the story is over, but God isn't finished yet. Just because He hasn't doesn't mean He won't. Suffering is coming to an end, so it's a temporary thing. So, why is God taking His time? One possible answer is that goes back to point one is His love. His desire is that no one would perish, but that everyone would be reunited with Him in 1 Peter 3, verses 9. God is waiting. He's being patient. He's continually pursuing those far from His hopes. They will return to Him one day. Suffering exists because the story is not over. God is still pursuing His people, but one day suffering will end and the final chapter will be written. Then we'll be able to see the whole story and how masterfully it was written and how much love God actually has for us. But for now, we must hold on to the hope that our suffering is temporary. And let's not forget, it's not pointless. And the last point I want to bring across is suffering will turn us bitter or turn us to God. One or the two, I can assure you. Suffering spurs us to action. It either drives us closer to God or makes us bitter at God. It doesn't allow us to stay in a neutral position. Suffering will force us to move in either direction. We don't get to decide that. We decide where we move to. We will turn from God because we think He's not good, not loving, not trustworthy because of our pain. Or we will turn to God, trusting. And while things don't make sense now, one day God will reveal the bigger picture. Like I said, we get to choose, but before you decide, just consider that God didn't spare Himself. He entered into suffering Himself in the form of Jesus Christ on that cross that died for you and me. He knows what you're experiencing, and He wants to walk with you through the problem. So I hope this has answered your questions today, and I hope you have an amazing week. Please subscribe to my channel. That is for free, and it will greatly help spread the word. Thank you. Cheers.